Welcome back to All Things Unexplained. If you missed part 1 of our conversation with Lee Starks, veteran, author of Orbit, and UFO experiencer, you'll want to go back and catch up, because things are about to get even more intriguing. In part 2, we're diving deeper into Lee's first-hand encounters with the unknown, the real-life inspirations behind his fictionalized accounts, and the chilling truths hidden within his near-death experience. Buckle up, folks. It's time to orbit the unexplained.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic threw their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah.
All things unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
All Things Unexplained is free to watch on YouTube and listen to wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to support our show, you can visit our YouTube store. Additionally, you can find us on Venmo under All Things Unexplained. Be sure to check out our website, allthingsunexplained.com. All proceeds from the sales of Dr. Mounce's books on Amazon and Audible also go straight to our show. Are you comfortable talking about your near-death experience?
Sure. Sure.
I would love to. We've had a few near-death experience guests and experts on our show, and I find them incredibly fascinating. So I would love to hear yours.
Yeah, I think looking back on it, when I separated service, I had probably a boatload of PTSD, and it wasn't necessarily any things that I saw or any things that we did along the way. It was, I always felt like with the guys that I worked with, I'm going to be the guy to make sure they get home safe tonight, right?
Yeah.
It was a burden that I put on myself that probably half my teammates didn't even realize that, I put that burden on myself. But I loved my guys. I loved the teams. And all of a sudden, when that ends, it's just over. And you miss the camaraderie. You miss the going to work on Sunday and sitting in a car with William. If he's listening, he's a character in the book. And, you talk about so much stuff and you experience so much stuff with these guys, kicking in doors, going upstairs, good guys versus bad guys stuff, right? And when it's done, it's really just done. And I've never not been on some sort of a team somewhere, from the day I was born, and played baseball and did all that stuff. And then for me, it carried over into my career path. And so I had a lot of PTSD, and I can't believe I'm admitting this out loud in front of everybody, but I think that it was almost sort of connected. I was healthy. I had no illness, no sickness. It happened on May 10th, and on January 1st, I started training for the Appalachian Trail. Me and a friend of mine, we're going to hike a short segment of it, the Shenandoah Trail part, right?
Okay,
It's like, I don't know, 120 miles, something like that. And so, I was training like a fool. I was putting a rucksack on, going 4 miles, maybe running the last 2 miles, like 4 or 5 days a week. And I was probably in better shape then than even before I departed service, shamefully have to say it. And my family and I went out for dinner. It was a Friday night and everything was normal. We went to this restaurant in town here. And when we came back to get in the car, my kids were probably junior high then. So they were at a really fun age then. Yeah. This kind of strange looking guy was walking down the sidewalk, right? And my wife is one of those people that can strike up a conversation with anybody. And, she's just super friendly and super outgoing. And so the kids and I got in the car and she's talking to this kind of strange looking dude. And then she gets in the car and says, wow, that was different. We're like, what? She goes, this guy just walked up and asked if your husband knows what he has. And then the kids right away, not it. That was weird, So I was the last one. I didn't touch my nose apparently in time. And almost immediately after that, I started getting this like black and white vision. Imagine like an old black and white television set that you got to, turn the antennas to get it to come in because the picture's kind of snowy.
Sure.
It initially started like just a little snowy vision, right? And so I was like rubbing my eyes and stuff. And we had to go pick up one of my daughter's friends. And so we drove over to their house. And as we got close to that house, the vision stuff was getting worse. And now I was got what I called a sour stomach. If I drink, I don't know, lime juice or something like that on an empty stomach, I'll have to have a Tums because my stomach just can't handle that, right? And that's what it felt like. It felt like something like that. And so we talked to the family for a little bit, got, the girl in the car, and we took off. And my vision just started really deteriorating. And this like acid in my stomach started really building up, right? And my wife was like, are you okay? And I go, yeah. I think I just need a Tums. To me, that's like the magic cure. I'll put a Tums
me
in,
too.
you'll be fine. Rub some dirt on it, you're good. And then I told her, I said, I'm having a problem with my eyesight. She's like, what do you mean? I go, it's like everything's black and white and snowy. It's really weird. I can't describe it. And it got to a point, it continued to get worse. And it got to the point where I'm just tuning everybody out. And in my brain was like 100% on, firing on all cylinders. I'm thinking very clearly, very coherently, analyzing what's going on with me, right? Why is my eyesight this way? Why do I have this pain? And then suddenly it occurred to me that, oh, I might be in real trouble here. Maybe I'm having a heart attack, right? And I'm telling you, like that, a twinkle of an eye, I was somewhere else. I was no longer in the car. And the room that I was in, I describe it as all the walls were like that real bright pearloid white, almost like a white that was alive, right? And instantly I was like, wow, nothing hurts. I feel like really good, where am I? What is this? Where the walls and the ceiling met, you couldn't see a seam. It was like one piece, right? And over to my right was, I'm going to call him a person. At the moment, I didn't know if it was God or Jesus, or I'm Christian, so I'm going to put that out there. And I always had this vision: when you die, you're going to probably, first I always felt I'm going to meet my grandma, and I'm going to meet my cousin Greg, and then everybody else, right? And none of that happened. This person was sort of right next to me, asking me some questions. And then off to my left, there was probably like maybe 4 or 5 others. And the strange thing is, I couldn't see anyone's face. And it caused me to think, why can't I see? I could perfectly see this person's body, But when he would turn and ask me stuff, I couldn't describe him to you. I don't know what he looked like, right? And then I had this feeling that off to the right, the room sort of went up and there was like a doorway back there. And in front of me, this entire wall was, I call it a video of what was going on inside the car. I could see everything in the car, and it was chaos. I mean, they were upset, right? And I've described it as, it almost seemed like technology. You know, you hear near-death people explain that they rised out of their body and they could look down and see, you know, the doctors working on them or something of that. No, this wasn't like that. This was like, the entire wall was like a big screen TV, and it was what was going on inside the car, almost like through someone's eyes. And so the person that was next to me had on the wall, there was like almost like a sort of a desk that come out, like he was, I don't know, writing or taking notes. I don't recall specifically him actually writing stuff, but that's kind of what it felt like, right? And to be honest with you, I was so overwhelmed with how incredible I felt that it was undescribable. And I'm sure that what you think you would feel when you go to heaven is pretty good, right? And it's kind of what it was like. It was, I had no sadness whatsoever. Everything just felt good. I was curious who these people are over here and why I can't see this dude's face, right? That don't seem right, but okay. And there came a point where he was like, you know, you ready to go? You know, we got to go. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he was kind of gesturing that we're going to go up that angle and out that door. And I was like, well, you know, what about them in the car? You know, and he's like, well, what about them? And I said, well, I think I need to go back there. And I can't remember the conversation 100%. It's been a couple of years. I believe that he told me the only thing to go back to is the family, right? Like, he's telling me, if you're going to go back, you have to go back for your family. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, how do I get back? And he's like, you got to figure that out. You got to focus. You got to, you know, I can't do this for you. Only you can get yourself back. And I remember hearing a siren in the background through the wall of the big screen TV, we'll call it. And I could hear that, but it didn't register. And so now I'm like in this room looking at this big screen wall going, oh, all right, I got to get back. So I'm focusing, I'm thinking, and all of a sudden, boom, I opened my eyes. The car door opened. That was an ambulance pulling up. And the ambulance dude was like right there. And I'm good. I'm good. And my wife, everybody in the car is looking at me like, what do you mean you're good? You know, I go, no, I was bad, but now I'm good. Everything is fine. I feel fine. I got no problem. The pain, vision, all that stuff was gone. And so the ambulance guy was like, oh, okay, you know, what's your name? And so I said my name. What day of the week is it? Friday. We just got back from dinner. You know, the president is so-and-so. What else do you need? You know, and he's like, well, we need to get you back in the ambulance and we'll check you out. And I'm like, yes, let's do that. Because, you know, whatever this was, and I didn't tell anybody, obviously, about what really happened, you know. And so he said, let's, you know, we'll put you in the ambulance. So I go to get out of the car and they're like, no. We're going to bring the gurney over and we'll help you on the gurney. And I'm like, no. I'm not doing that. All I could think, this is stupid. I'm sorry. Dale Earnhardt crashed his car and he's in the ambulance, right? And the car was sitting on all four wheels. And he said, I think the car still runs. He hopped out of the ambulance and ran over to the car and drove it away, right? That was the only thing that was in my brain at that moment was that scene. I go, no, I'm walking to that ambulance. And so I walked over, climbed up in it. And then the next guy like hooked me up to all the stuff. And so, same battery of questions, tell me what happened. I told him everything. And then I said, I wear a Fitbit. I know it's not like hardcore science or anything, but my phone's in the car. Maybe we could download Fitbit and see if there was anything on that. And you could see the pulse just bottomed out and then, come back up. And so Fitbit wise, there was science. But no, so they hooked me up to all the stuff. And then we went to the hospital for the blood test, because if you do have a heart attack, certain enzymes pop up, and then same thing with stroke. And I passed with flying colors. And later that night, they said, listen, you need to follow up. And I'm like, Roger that, man, I'm following up. So I called my doctor the next day and told them what happened. And I think they even got me in on a Saturday. The next day, drove up there, went through all the stuff that they had, and then they made another appointment for me, I think, on the following Monday. And so I'm sitting there with my doctor, and I did tell my wife what happened, what really happened, on the way home from the hospital. And, she's 1,000% supportive, and, with all, it was fine. I was afraid that, people are going to think I'm really nuts, right? No. And so when I was up to the doctor, I felt like I don't really want to tell him this, but I probably should, right? And so I said, hey, doc, come here. By the way, I kind of went somewhere. He's like, what do you mean? I go, when it happened, I kind of like left my body and was somewhere else, and I could see what was going on in the car. And he's like, oh, geez, so here's some more tests we're going to do. And then I told him I was scheduled to leave to go do the Appalachian Trail. Like, in 10 days, can we get all this stuff in? He's like, dude, you're not doing the Appalachian Trail. I go, well, can we get it all in, before we leave? And he's like, well, let me see. And so he got everything in except for like the really important one, the stress test. He couldn't get it in for, a few weeks. And I said, all right, well, when I get back from the Appalachian Trail, then I'll hook up with you and we'll go do the stress test. He's like, dude, you can't do this Appalachian Trail. I go, listen, I've been training for this. I tell you what, if I go do the Appalachian Trail and I die, you're right, you win. But if I come back, then I'll do your test, And so I went and did the Appalachian Trail, didn't die, almost died, but didn't, and then came back and did the stress test. And they never did come up with anything that it could be physically. And so from there, things were different for me. Things were different. I've been a lifelong hunter. Hunting people, hunting animals, all that stuff. I no longer had a taste to even go hunting, right? I still go hunting now with my college roommate, who is a character in the book. And now if I take a deer, it's more for providing food than the thrill of, killing something, right? And it's become really, really kind of spiritual to do. So that's a good thing. This is going to sound a little strange, but
you're on the right show.
Yeah, all things unexplained. Right?
Come to the right place.
Animals I used to didn't really think one way or the other. Yeah, there's a squirrel, that's cool. Hope he leaves me alone. But now it's like I still hike and run. We have a lot of forest preserves around here where I live, and so they're kind of almost tame deer, but I can like get right up on them, and they don't seem to be bothered by me. And even some birds, it's like I can get pretty darn close to them and just sort of look at them and, hi bird, how are you today? And I would never ever had anything like that before. And then the really strange, unexplained part of it, for a very, very long time, I would wake up at almost the same time every night, like 2:58, 2:59 in the morning, and be drawn almost to look out our window. Where we live is sort of out in the country, so we don't have a lot of neighbors. And it was like I'm looking out this window going, all right, what am I supposed to be looking at? This is dumb, just go back to bed. But it would happen all the time. Then with writing this, really, really sort of strangeness would happen. Writer's block, you get writer's block sometimes. And I would get writer's block, and then usually I have this sort of regiment I do every night before bed. I like to maybe listen to some music or something, tones, I'm a kind of a tone guy. I like listening to tones, and say my prayers before bed every night. And then when I would have a block on the book, I would focus on, where that blocking point was, and just sort of really, really concentrate, even if it was for like 5 minutes, on this problem I'm having with this book, right? The next day, every single time, I would have 3, 4, 5 different ways I could go, like instant answers the next day. And so when I finished it, and I got the very first copy from the publisher, it was like, wow, I did this. And then I had to stop myself and go, no, I didn't do this. I go, you did this. Thank you for all those downloads all along the way. And so, so downloads are, I think, I never really had a whole bunch of downloads before.
I'm still waiting on mine.
Yeah, exactly.
But we do hear that a lot with people that come on our show, this concept of downloading information, that it just really comes to them. And a lot of what you discussed in your experience, we have heard very similar concepts and experiences as well. So you are not alone in what you have felt, but obviously the experience is yours alone and what it has done for your life. And it's beautiful. It sounds like you're very well connected to the universe around you now.
Yeah, I think so. I try. I mean, you can ask my wife whenever we have campfires here in the backyard, and I'll just be all night long staring up at the stars, right? Just waiting. Something's coming. I want to see it. I know I don't want to miss it, whatever it is. And I sent Tim some orb things that we filmed, and, a few other things. And so I think, everybody sort of feels something's coming, right? And I don't know what it is, but here we go. Can the viewer see this picture?
We can see the picture, so you'll have to describe what we're seeing here.
Okay, this just recently happened. I'm driving down our little 2-lane highway, right? And not a whole lot of traffic. And I see we get bald eagles out here where we live. It's fun to see them, because there was a point in time in Illinois you wouldn't ever see any. And where we live at is a river sort of goes through that's big enough that we have eagles, right? And so I'm seeing this bald eagle, and it's coming, and it's hauling the mail, man. I mean, it's flying flat, straight. So I pull my truck over, and I'm like, I'm going to get a picture of this thing. And so the first picture was the first picture. I just sort of, did this on the phone, got two real quick pictures. And the point of this is, if you reference that telephone pole and then reference where the eagle is, and then the second picture, you'll notice it doesn't move very far. Can you see that?
So
Yep.
And so you know,
So CJ, do
me,
you see the
me,
bald eagle above the? I'd say at 2 o'clock
yeah,
above the
Okay.
pole.
Okay.
yeah. And then go to the next one, and
Okay.
it's probably at 1 o'clock, maybe
Yes.
still. And so my point in pointing that out to you is I'm stationary in a truck. I'm looking at this bird, want to get a picture of it. And so he was moving so fast that I had to just snap 2 real quick pictures, right?
Mhm.
Now, in the second picture, look underneath the wire. Can you zoom in on that at all, Tim? Okay. If you
don't
look under
think I
the
can.
bottom wire, you're going to see a couple spots in this picture.
Yeah, I
Yep.
see them.
Okay. Go to the next one, Tim.
There we go.
Oh,
Right.
whoa.
You see the bald eagle? You
Yeah.
see his white head and his tail. Now
Mhm.
look at those 3 spots.
Yeah.
Okay, go to the next one, Tim.
What in the world?
Really strange.
Okay, Mick West, is that a bird?
I mean, it has more of a disc shape, or it also reminds me of the infamous jellyfish UFO.
Well, but I don't really notice anything hanging down underneath it.
No,
No.
I don't either.
Okay, now because of my background, I have to try to think about this logically, right? How fast does a bald eagle fly? Well, they can go anywhere from like 55 miles an hour all the way up to almost 100, depending on the wind and the current and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's the speed demon in our area. We do have a falcon that I've seen. He would be the speed demon. This would be the Ferrari, and the other one would be the really fast McLaren. But what else? We have a lot of geese, we have a lot of other birds, but when you think about that first picture with those 3 things not in it, and then 1 second later, those 3 things are in it, logically, what bird could overtake the speed of a bald eagle and get in the frame and really in the center of his, if you drew that up and down, those 3 things are in the center area of where the eagle is, almost perfectly.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
it kind of rolls out smudges on the lens. Sometimes you hear that too, right? Because they're not there in the first picture. But then, boom, in the next picture, there they are. And just looking at them, they do appear like spatially that they are out there in your field of vision beyond the pole and above the field somewhere. That's just what they look like.
now when
They also make a triangle.
well,
what
that's
I've
another
seen.
thing I was going to
Yeah.
say. Notice how they're in a triangle also. When I took those pictures, obviously I did not see those things, right? It was later when I looked back at the pictures and went, oh, great. Now they're following me. Great. Here we go. But, I blew them up. And then I have a MUFON friend on the East Coast. And I don't want to get into any politics on MUFON, but I have a friend that, is with them. And so I sent her these pictures, and whatever analyzing that they do, she said that it looked like it had some sort of electrical aura around it. She could, obviously couldn't say if, yeah, by God, you got a UFO there. That's the real deal, but it sure does look suspicious, doesn't it?
Well, you definitely got a
Yeah.
bald eagle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that in of itself is a really impressive catch there.
I've seen a lot of different photos from a lot of different folks firsthand, and to me, this one is pretty compelling for what it is.
Sure.
I mean, I think it really is, and I can't get really very many people interested in this photo because it just doesn't really look that appealing. But knowing that, I took it personally and I snapped those photos literally within 1 second apart, and then come back and see that's, kind of proof for me that it's legit. And that first one, if you could zoom in on those other 2, they don't appear as like a solid structure. They kind of appear almost like scraggly lines or something. And she felt that that could be the electrical system of, if it is, a UFO, that could be the electrical portion of whatever drives the thing. And they're moving so fast that you can't see them anyway. But to pick it up on one snap was just like a 1 in a million shot, really,
We've had a lot of people come on with incredible shots. And like you're saying, it's hard to get anybody interested in them. And I don't understand why. Remember when we had Cheryl on, Tim, with what she snapped from outside of her airplane? We were flabbergasted. And I thought we were going to break the internet with this post.
Right.
Nobody cared. Not a single
cared.
person. Like,
and Lucy Castle in the UK with the Tic Tac photo in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
All of it in the middle of the day.
I've kind of come to realize that a lot of the UFO community is dog eat dog. And, I wrote a silly book, right, about UFOs. So I'm bad like that too. I'm trying to make $1 off it. And trust me, you don't make much off a book. Tim, you guys have written books, that you don't make much off them. But it almost seems like the UFO community itself is so, I want to get the first thing that's big. And then the next guy, I'm bigger. And it's almost like watching what's going on in politics. It's almost like watching Democrats versus Republicans. Who can scream the loudest will be the most noticed,
True.
And that often doesn't lead to progress.
No,
it does not.
It leads to the opposite of progress, which is sensationalism, because people are inclined, as they were in the 50s, right, when they would get invited onto television shows and radio shows, and they would be paid for it, right? They were inclined to come up with bigger and wilder stories that they would continuously be asked back on. And I feel like we kind of are in a similar situation again, and we need to be aware of that and be careful that we don't lose ourselves in sensationalism and then in general just blowing it up way above what it really is.
Yeah. I agree 1,000%.
I will say there are some personalities in our realm that do that. It's a lot of competition, what have you. But in terms of individual humans who are interested in the UAP subject, in aliens, in the universe, what have you, they tend to be very open-minded, accepting people. Everybody that we've had on our show as guests have been really brilliant and far more connected to this world that we live in and this universe that we live in than anybody else. Now, in terms of big personalities on podcasts and what have you, you get that in any realm, right? Everybody's trying to get the attention and get the likes and the clicks, and it's insane what you have to do to try and get attention. And I'm not very good at trying to get attention. So I only joined X like 3 weeks ago.
Really?
Well, maybe 6 weeks ago, but
okay.
I called it Twitter earlier when I was on the, but I think I have like 100 and something followers on X. I'm really, really bad at.
Well, cool. Follow me. I'll follow you.
Yes,
That's how it works. That's how it works.
That's how it works.
Networking live on the air. And, speaking of clicks, Lee was kind enough to send us some really interesting videos as well. And we're so pleased to be joined by Lee Starks, author of Orbit. You can pick that up on Amazon, and we have links in the show description to grab it right now. And Lee, I think some of these were through night vision, which is very interesting. Maybe you could just describe what we're seeing in some of these. I want to start with this one because I believe that you said that this was Starlink.
Yes. Starlink is one of the things that get like, the 911 calls. Hey, there's something up in the sky. There's a bunch of them, right? And it's always ends up being Starlink. And this one, can we start it over, Tim?
Yep. Let's see.
If you watch this, you're going to see Starlink disappear one pod at a time. It's, a whole train of satellites, and
Oh,
you
yeah,
notice
you're
how
right.
they're just sort of disappearing.
Yes. From like the top
Right,
down.
right. And so that has been reported by a number of people of, it was a bunch of ships, one after the other, and they just, one by one, they disappeared. Well, what's happening is the satellite is going beyond the scope of the sun rays, right? And so the sun no longer is hitting the satellite. And so it gives you the appearance of just sort of flying off into nothing. And it's not that. And I just sent that. A lot of people haven't really seen Starlink yet. And this one is basically a satellite. And so you're going to see the satellite moving across the sky, heading like down on the frame.
Is it the black spot?
No, it's
okay.
Started over. It might be glitching out because of the connections. Tim has them at his location. But basically, as I said earlier, a satellite.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Right in the middle. See
Right in the middle.
Okay.
And it's headed down. And that's just a satellite moving across the sky. It's consistent. It's no strobe lights like on an airplane or a helicopter. It's just out there in space on orbit, right? Just continually going. And so I wanted Tim to see these. And he's also got a couple that we'll probably see next, I'm guessing, of orbs. Now this one, look at the size of that. And that was over top a subdivision in the town I used to live in up at north. And it suddenly just starts accelerating and leaving and just going due north away from us.
Yeah.
And that one had me so curious. The next day, I went and door knocked. All those neighbors probably thought I was crazy. Like, hey, did you guys happen to see this light last night? I mean,
it starts.
You know how
bright.
big the moon is on a full moon?
Right.
That thing was probably twice the size of the moon on a full moon. And we sat there and watched it for long enough that I could go dig out the night vision and film it. And then all of a sudden it just took off and left.
So when you're using the night vision, are you filming from the actual night vision device, or are you filming from your phone through the night?
This one is a PVS 14 and it's monocular. So I'm basically holding my cell phone up to it. Yeah. And there's some popular videos out. Do you remember, I think it was on the USS Roosevelt, the triangles?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, usually on Navy ships, they have what they call Snoopy teams, right? And Snoopy teams have, if something is close enough to the ship that they can actually get eyes on it, they'll send a Snoopy team out to record it, and they have all kinds of different recording devices. But the one that you see with the triangles is almost identical in appearance to what I was doing. Okay. And I can't say how I got the video, but they asked what my opinion on the video. And my opinion was whoever filmed this wasn't a Snoopy. He was probably either a SEAL that happened to be on that boat, or maybe a Marine that happened to be on that boat that had this equipment assigned to his persons, because it was clearly a PVS 14 and clearly it was being recorded by a cell phone. Snoopies will have very, very good, sophisticated, like high dollar cameras with night visions attached to them. And so it's altogether different. And I basically did what that video was doing there. Okay. I'm sorry. Did that make sense?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
And it totally answered my question. That's what I wanted to know. Was it straight through the camera or through your phone?
Yeah.
And here we have another orb, I believe.
That one's not showing. Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, I believe this one is pretty short video. One of the other, when I sent them to you on text message, I wasn't sure if I was grabbing the right one, so I probably sent you a couple extras. But basically, these orbs are almost like what you see Chris Bledsoe filming.
Yes.
And there's one that I sent Tim that you'll see in a minute that there's no sound. You don't hear any motor noise at all. A couple of them sort of zigzag across the sky, not in a straight line, but just sort of meander here, meander there. What else? If you zoom in on them, the color is very similar to what Chris Bledsoe's are. I'm not saying they're the same thing, but it's clearly not a helicopter, airplane, satellite. It's something else.
Lee, did your orb sightings start before or after your near-death experience?
I would say both. It didn't start because of right after the near death. There was one evening, probably right after 9/11. We had night vision out and we saw one, didn't know what it was, thought it was like just, I don't know. I didn't know what it was. And we watched it travel from house to house above the rooftops. And we watched this on night vision, right? And when I saw it go to a house and stop, and it stayed there for a minute, and then it went to another house and stopped. This is going to sound crazy. The only thing I'm thinking, God dang it, the government's got some new kind of a thing where they can, or count bodies in the house, right? Like that was the only thing I was thinking. Or whatever it is trying to figure out how many people are inside, because why would they go to every house?
Yeah.
And, we watched it probably go over 4 or 5 other houses before, it was gone. And when we saw it, we were almost dumbfounded, like, what was that? That doesn't make any sense.
So tell me just real quick, why would your mind go there? Is that something from like working in customs that you would like immigrants or
everybody's guilty until proven innocent,
okay.
including the government, No, I'm just joking when I say that. No, I think with my career, it was, if it's logical, it makes sense. It has to be logical, right? If I'm sitting here interviewing you and your timeline isn't matching up with a timeline that I actually have of you, what you're saying is not logical. And so I think just because of my career, everything has to make sense. It just has to, right? And so we saw that, and that made really no sense at all. And so my brain automatically went with, all right, somebody's got that and they're obviously flying it. What's it doing? Why is it going house to house to house? And I actually, I gave MUFON sort of not a thumbs down, but, I didn't speak real well of them. And it was because of this incident. I thought, all right, I'm going to be one of those guys. I'm going to nobody's looking. I went on the MUFON site and recorded it, right?
Yeah.
And it was a pretty good description, I thought. Didn't hear squat back from them. And I thought, all right, they must hear a lot of crazy stories, right? They didn't follow up on it. And no, I don't know. They seemed so not interested in it. And I thought, well,
got a 2-star review on Yelp from you.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like, well, I'm a credible guy. I can, I'm sure they'll listen to me, right? No, they didn't care. They didn't care. And so,
they might have cared and just not let you know they cared. They filed that.
And so there were a few other things like that I've seen those types of orbs before. The ones that we occasionally see now are so much more bright and intense, right? Like the ones that I saw doing that with the house, you couldn't see it with your naked eye at all. And it was dark out, and the orb itself, I would say, was probably the size of maybe like a basketball. It wasn't huge. It was pretty small. But when you pulled the night vision down, you couldn't see it at all. And so that made me, go, wow, what was that? That's crazy. And then you put the night vision back up and there it is. And so.
Wow, I need to get some night vision.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm learning here.
Yeah, that's a part of my job I miss. Because I get really good shit there. I don't.
Look, that's a tax write-off, CJ. If you do a paranormal podcast, night vision is a tax write-off. So
it seems legit. I'd go with
legit.
that. Yeah.
To be continued. All things unexplained.
what's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
All Things Unexplained is free to watch on YouTube and listen to wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to support our show, you can visit our YouTube store. Additionally, you can find us on Venmo under All Things Unexplained. Be sure to check out our website, allthingsunexplained.com. All proceeds from the sales of Dr. Mounce's books on Amazon and Audible also go straight to our show.